So I'm one of those people that just has a whole bunch of desires. I'm always thinking, I want this, I want that. I would love for that to happen to me, and then I just wait and I wait for God to make it all happen. And one of my desires has always been to go into a third world country prison. Just my idea of how they must be feeling after watching all those Indian movies that I've seen is that there just must be heartbroken without hope, because prison life in America, has its issues and things like that, but you still get food, you get a bed, but after watching Indian movies, I just realized if you're in prison in a third world country, you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. And you live in this constant fear of being killed or beaten up, which, in cases, I guess is the case here as well, but it's different. Like, it's so much better here. And so I had this desire. I want to work in a third world country prison. And one of the times I went to the Philippines on a medical mission trip, I found out that we were going to be working in a prison. And I remember some people kind of gasping, going, and me, I was literally jumping up and down when I found out. I was like, yay, God, thank you, you made it happen. And so I was very excited, and we went to the prison, and got these guards and everything, and we had this big open room that we were going to be seeing the patients in, and I remember just seeing my first patient and treating them, and then one of the doctors next to me, he's like, oh, look at this patient. The patient has scabies. And I was looking, and I was like, oh, I'm glad my last patient didn't have scabies. At least I didn't notice. But then when my next patient came, I just realized, wow, this guy is covered with scabies. So first of all, let me just tell you what scabies is. Scabies is this disease. It's kind of like lice, but it's in the body, and there's this little bug that crawls underneath your skin, and it's very itchy, and you get it from contact, skin to skin. And so whenever I would see a patient in America who might have scabies, of course I'd double glove and wash my hands really good afterwards, and then you quarantine the whole room for a while and clean it and decontaminate it. Well, here in this prison, we had a bottle of alcohol as our hand sanitizer. We had no running water that we had free access to, and you definitely couldn't get up every patient, go wash your hands with soap or anything like that. And we honestly didn't have enough gloves to be changing gloves every patient or anything. And so I was like, okay, so my patient comes, sits down, has scabies, and all these thoughts are going through my mind. And I was like, you know what? I bet I could see this entire patient without ever touching him. He had back pain, and so I had him bend and do all the things that I needed to, and I did a good thorough history, and I wrote out his prescription and everything, and I felt confident I was giving him the right treatment. And then just because I always like to pray with my patients, I said, I can pray with you if you'd like, and he said yes. Now in America, I would always hold my patient's hand and pray with them, but in this case, I didn't want to hold his hand, and so I knew that in adults, scabies is usually from the neck down, so I put my hand right there, and I started to pray with him. And I just remember as I was praying, God was just saying, hold his hand and pray for him. And I was like, no, God, I can't, because I don't want to get scabies, God. And I was like, and after this, I'm going back to Japan, and I don't have health care in Japan. I don't have health care till I get back to America. And God, even if I can get the medicine or whatever, you have to put this lotion on for like 8 or 14 hours or something like that. And I was like, I don't have time for something like that, God. And so I was like, no, God, and I'm just kind of trying to explain my reasoning to him, and God just said, you need to do this. And I have never heard God say that to me. Not even when God told me to quit my job and become a missionary did he say, you need to do this. And it wasn't one of those like, you need to do this. It was just a very gentle, you need to do this, like this is important. And I just remember thinking, okay, this prisoner's been here for a long time, and maybe he just needs that human contact, and you want to show him your love. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I knew it was too late to pray for him holding his hand, but what God wanted was that contact. So at the end, I held out my hand and I shook his hand goodbye. And I made it a really long handshake just so that he would know, God loves him. And honestly, part of me was like, wow, I love you, and the other part of me was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting scabies. And so right after he left, alcohol held my hands up, and then the next patient came, and soon I realized every single patient had scabies, and it didn't matter to me anymore. I kind of forgot that they had scabies. Of course, I would treat them and stuff, but I would just hold their hands and pray with them, and it didn't matter to me anymore that they had scabies. And I saw a lot of cool things happen. Like one patient, as I started to pray with him, he just broke down and he started crying, and I looked at why he was in there, and he was in there for like rape or something like that. And he was like, I've been watching you the whole time. And I was just like, God, I want her as my doctor, because I've seen how you've been taking care of the patients. And yeah, I mean, a lot of my patients had like their aches and pains go away. There was this one guy who he couldn't properly see maybe even like 3 to 5 feet in front of him, and after we prayed, he could see as far as I could see. He could even read the writing on somebody's shirt at the back end of the hall, and God had totally healed his eyesight. And yeah, it was just an amazing, amazing time. It was just like I had imagined going to prison and doing ministry in a third country would be like. Like their hearts were just so open to God and so willing to receive his love. And I just remember as I left, I was like, God, thank you for making me do that. And I think the patients really just felt your love. And I don't want to get scabies, but even if I do, it would be worth it. And I got on the bus, and there was, you know, all our team there, and people started talking to me, and they were like, oh my goodness, Sapna, you like prayed with each patient holding their hand for 20 minutes. And that wasn't true. It was maximum like 2 to 5, honestly. But then they said, you were such an example of love. And as soon as they said that, I just remember thinking, like maybe 12, 13 years before, when I was a fairly new Christian, I remember a preacher coming to our church, and he shared this passage about this leper who comes to Jesus, and Jesus reaches out his hand and he touches him and he makes him whole. And at that time, he was explaining how if you were a leper, you had to yell out when you came into contact near anybody, I'm a leper, so that everybody would stay away from you and not be contaminated by you. And once you became a leper, basically you were an outcast and cut off from all society. And you didn't have a lot of human contact, if any at all. And he was just saying, you know, Jesus, for a lot of people, he would just say, okay, you're healed. Or he would tell people, yeah, the person's healed, they're going to be fine. But for this leper, Jesus touched him. And he was like, why did Jesus touch him? And he said, it's because Jesus knew how much that man needed to be touched and loved. And Jesus is our example of how to love people. And I just remember as I was sitting there, I just remember thinking, God, someday I want to be an example of how to love people. And the exact same words that I used like 12, 13 years ago were the words that these people were using. And I just remember being kind of dumbfounded and shocked. And I was like, wow, God, I thought today was all about the patients and these prisoners. I thought that I needed to do this to show them your love. But I needed to do this because not only did you want to show your love, you wanted to show me your love. Like, here's something I forgot I even prayed, but you didn't. And so I just shared this story to just encourage you. God is a good God, and he loves you, and he wants what's best for you, and he'll always do that. So don't be afraid to follow him. So I want to continue this story a little bit. So the next day I'm in clinic, and all of a sudden my hands start to itch, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting scabies. And I'm like, God, please, I don't want to get scabies. I don't want to get scabies, right? And by the end of the day, my hands are just full of this rash, and I was like, praise God, this is not scabies. Like, there's no way this could happen so fast if this was scabies. I must have some allergic reaction to maybe all that alcohol I was putting on. Anyways, I'm just beside myself with joy, and a week later I'm in Japan, and it's nighttime, and I'm just scratching away because this rash is so itchy and it just won't go away. And I just remember telling God, I was like, God, I am just so happy that this is not scabies, that I can't even pray for myself, but I would love for this to go away, right? And then the next day I was visiting some missionary friends, and I'm sitting there at the beach with my friend as we're watching her kids do stuff, and I'm just scratching away, and I just tell her what happened, and she just takes my hand, and she's like, God, please heal Sapna's hands. And from that moment on, all the itching stopped, and within a week, you couldn't even tell I had a rash on my hands. So God is a good God. He's an awesome God. Yeah, don't be afraid to follow God.